for Market podcast.
But the biggest mistake I made after lecturing in conferences and telling other growers, raise your prices. You can't afford to sell stuff too cheap. You should raise your price. I didn't hear my own stupid advice. I just didn't hear it. I did not raise my prices enough. Then Jenny came in and raised them a lot more, and now she's way more profitable, of course, just by the exact same arithmetic that I used to preach about, but I didn't follow my own preaching. So we just didn't charge high enough prices. And the math, of course, as I knew back then, even though I didn't apply it to myself, the math is that, if you have $100,000 in sales and you raise prices 5%, you get $5,000, So Jenny knew that. I don't know how she figured that out, but she figured it out, and that's what's making her so profitable now. And yet, and I always thought, of course, what held me back was, well, I don't want to look at these people and say, yeah, you got to pay me $5 a pound for those tomatoes. No, I didn't want to do that. And it doesn't bother her. And guess what? The customers are perfectly happy with it. They're perfectly happy.
Hello and welcome to the Growing for Market podcast, where we talk about growing, marketing, and the business of growing vegetables and flowers for local markets like farmers markets, CSAs, farm stands, and local wholesaling. I'm Katie Kulla, your host and a writer for Growing for Market magazine. For 33 years, the magazine for flower and vegetable market farmers. If you're enjoying the podcast, just wait till you see the magazine. Go to growingformarket.com for more. Also, if you could give us a follow and a rating, it really helps other like-minded people find the podcast.
I don't know about you, but I got into farming to grow food, not to spend my time creating pack lists, writing newsletters, responding to emails, or maintaining web stores. If I could spend less time on my phone and computer and more time farming, that would be a win. Enter Farmhand. Farmhand is the only all-in-one virtual assistant built by and for CSA farmers. It takes care of the admin, managing orders, customer communications, and automating tedious tasks so you can get back to doing what you love. On average, Farmhand saves CSA farmers 6 hours a week. That's 6 hours you could spend with your family, out in the field, or simply taking a breather. So, what would you do with an extra 6 hours? Now's the time to get your systems ready for next season. Learn how Farmhand can help at farmhand.partners/GFM. That's farmhand.partners/GFM. I am so excited to welcome Bootstrap Farmer as a sponsor of the podcast. I've known them for a dozen years, and if anyone tells you nothing is made in the USA anymore, well, they're headquartered and warehoused in Paris, Texas. They make their own all-metal, all-inclusive greenhouse frames of steel made in the USA and fabricated in Texas, and their heavy-duty, reusable propagation and microgreens trays are Midwest-made. With a complete range of supplies, they have just about everything for propagation and growing, including heat mats, ground cover, frost blankets, silage tarps, irrigation, and trellising. Want to color code your seed starting flats? They've got heavy-duty trays that will last for years in a full range of colors, great for keeping farm seedlings separate from retail or just for fun. And they have an experienced team of growers to support everything they sell. If you've heard of the NRCS High Tunnel Initiative providing grants for hoop houses, but have been put off by the paperwork, Bootstrap Farmer has a guide that will walk you through the application process so you can get your hoop house funded this winter. For all that and more, check out Bootstrap Farmer at bootstrapfarmer.com.
Hello, everyone. Today, I am talking with Jim Crawford, founder and semi-retired owner-operator of New Morning Farm in Pennsylvania. Founded by Jim in 1972, New Morning Farm is a 93-acre, certified organic, diversified, fresh market vegetable farm. The farm established several neighborhood markets in Washington, D.C. over the years, which are still running today under the management of the new owner, Jennifer Glenister, a 12-year employee. In his time as operator of New Morning Farm, the farm employed and trained hundreds of young apprentices, many of whom are operating organic vegetable farms all around the country, including, we found out as we were chatting beforehand, a friend of mine here in Oregon. Jim also helped to found Tuscarora Organic Growers, a successful marketing cooperative that ran for 32 years until 2019. Jim reports that his retirement has been successful and he still does some marketing work for the farm. Jim, I am so excited to hear about your decades of experience. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, well, you're welcome.
Okay, Yes, I'm excited. So I always like to start at the beginning. I imagine you've told this story many times now, but can you share with us about how you became a farmer and your journey to start New Morning Farm?
Sure. Yeah. It's kind of a funny story. When I was a little kid, I was obsessed with food. I was a foodie when I was 5 years old. My favorite thing was going to the store with my mother and picking out produce and stuff. And we had a farmer who came to our door every Friday afternoon from the next town over. This was in a suburb of Boston. And I just thought he was the coolest guy in the world. And I loved would bring us, vegetables and came for years. And that was kind of foundational. And because of him, I think probably I really wanted to have a vegetable garden in my backyard. And my parents encouraged me to do that. So I had that when I was about 12 and 13 and 14 and loved that and loved eating what I was growing. And anyway, so then and just in general, our family was very much really valued shopping from farms and farmers markets. So we didn't really have what now we think of as a farmers market, but we had farm stands, at farms and stuff. But anyway, so then I went to college and got lots of education and that had nothing to do with farming. And then I wound up in law school and but I really was not happy, and I knew there was something wrong. I was missing something fundamental. So I went for one semester or 1 year, really, and then at the end of that year, I got a situation where we had this little farm group of friends in Washington, in 1971. We had a group of friends that rented a little farmhouse on a 30-acre piece of land that had 5 acres of fields. And we just did it for weekends. It was 120 miles outside of D.C. It's actually in West Virginia. We did that, and then when I was, getting involved in that and having a garden there, which was a good garden, and I just got really excited about the garden, remembering back to my childhood and everything. And so I spent the summer there from my law school, and I actually was on leave from a job. And when the summer was over, I just decided I want to stay here and do this. I don't want to go back to these offices and school and stuff. So I just abruptly did that, and I never changed. I never looked back, as the old cliche is. I never looked back, and I really committed to it right away and was always really glad that I did. I never regretted it for a minute. And so that was 52 or 3 years ago or something. So anyway, just started on this rental place. We had 4 seasons there, and we started marketing in Washington, D.C., which was the nearest big city. And I had lived there previously when I was in law school. So I had a lot of friends there already. So it made a lot of sense to do marketing there. I did that. And of course, it turned out to be a very unusual place to do farmers markets, in a lot of ways unexpected. But anyway, so we started this market in 1972, and just sort of a neighborhood thing in neighborhoods in D.C., near where I lived and my friends lived at the time. And that was just like an instant success. There were no farmers markets in Washington, believe it or not, at that point. It was one kind of very lame one in a parking lot, wave distant from everybody that I knew. And that was the only farmers market in Washington, D.C. in 1972. So I could sort of see from my childhood that there was unmet demand there, and so I started that year to go to neighborhoods, with things I was growing, and my neighbors also were growing, because I had some neighbors that were near me where my farm was that were already experienced vegetable growers, and so they helped me, but they also needed somebody to help them marketing, and I was the city boy, so I just started that. So that's how it all got started, really, and it's still going amazingly in very many similar ways to the very first year, actually. We're in neighborhoods in Washington and very close to the neighborhood we very first started in, and we're very popular now. We've been doing it, all these years, and really have a large following, I'd say. Loyal people some of whom have known and been shopping with us for 50 years even. So it's pretty amazing. So.
Wow. So when you made the decision to quit law school and farm, I mean, I think that would be kind of an eyebrow raiser even today, but at the time, there was even less of a model for what you were doing. I mean, what were reactions of people around you, like family and friends?
Well, they were polite.
Okay, well, that's good.
But I think they were very skeptical. My parents were just very generous and open-minded, and they didn't object. They were a little nervous about the idea that was I going to be able to make a living, and of course. But the thing that really got started right away was how these people in the city wanted the stuff we were offering them. on the street in their neighborhood. They just really, it was just like I experienced when I was a kid. Same thing, and so I wasn't surprised at all. So that was really the key, was people wanting to get what we were offering them. So
Yeah. And how did you get from that rented land to the land that became New Morning Farm?
right, yeah, we actually started on that rental farm. We decided to call it New Morning Farm because one night we were sitting around smoking something, you can imagine,
Yeah.
and
It was the
and, and
70s.
listening to a Bob Dylan album, which was called New Morning. If you don't, maybe you don't know that one, but
I don't. That's okay.
so we just jokingly said, "Well, this farm needs a name, so let's just call it New Morning Farm." It was a total joke, it was not a serious business decision at all, but it stuck. So it's still called that.
Okay.
So, but that's the origin of the name. And let's see. So we had, as I said, 4 seasons there, and business was, grew fast. And we got married. My wife and I got married in 1975. So that was, and then we started, as soon as we got married, we started looking for land, and we found it in 1976. So in 76, we bought this farm in the winter, February of 76, and we're still there. It was a good find. We were really lucky to get this particular piece of land. It was good in a lot of ways, had good water for irrigation, and the climate was okay. I mean, for central Pennsylvania, it was much better than north of us, of course, and some ways better than south of us. So we got used to it, of course, right away, and it was similar to the climate I grew up in anyway. So that was easy. And this farm that we found to buy was actually about 30 miles north of where we already were. And we were in West Virginia. This farm was just across the 2 state lines. You go into Maryland and then from West Virginia to Maryland into Pennsylvania. And so it's right there in southern Pennsylvania. Really scenic part of the state, and a part I just really loved. It was rural, lots of farms, and although mountainous, though, in our part of the area there, it's a ridge and valley area there that's known well in central Pennsylvania, and east from us is famously good agricultural land. Where we were and are is not famously good agricultural land; it's mountain farms, but still we happen to come across a decent field, good soils, and so we were lucky that way. And so then we started in 76 on that place, and still there. We did expand a little bit. We bought roughly 20 acres from our neighbor at some point many years ago, and we rented some land. We still rent, which is another neighbor. And so, but we basically farm about 30 acres. If you just, of the crops, of the cash crops, you could say, and then cover crops about another 10 or 12 or something like that. So, yeah. So it's a small acreage. The real estate is not, we don't have a lot of good fields, but the ones we have are really good. And there's a total of about 40 fields on the farm. So, and in our neighboring farm that we rent, so, which we've done for many years.
And then, so what's the drive time to Washington, D.C., if that remained your market?
Right. Yeah, that was a big consideration. Of course, always that balance between real estate prices and and distance to the market and expenses of traveling and trucking and all. So we agonized over that for a long time in 75 and 76, and we finally just sort of compromised and got a place that we thought was far enough away from the city that we could afford the real estate, but close enough that we still thought we could deal with the traveling. And we already had the experience of those first 4 years traveling. It was about 30 or 40 miles south of us.
Okay.
So a little bit closer before, but really pretty similar. So when we started to do it on our own place, we already felt like we knew what we were doing for the distance to the market and the logistics and all that. And so, and it still is fine. It works fine. It's just a different aspect of the formula. I mean, it's a cost of traveling that far, and especially the time and effort, the driving and stuff. But it works. It works well. I don't regret that at all.
Mm-hmm.
The trade-off is really the trade-off of having a place in really scenic rural Pennsylvania, where we really wanted to live, and being able to jump over that 100 or so miles. It's actually 120 is what the farm that we bought is. 120. The other farm was slightly closer. Anyway, so we got used to it, and we just sort of created a situation, a system for marketing that adjusted to all the variables, and I think that was a very lucky and good thing for us that we sort of figured out how to compensate for the challenges and still get the advantage of being in the city. Because we did try marketing for the first couple of years. We tried different versions of marketing closer to the farm in smaller cities. It absolutely did not work. Washington, D.C. was so obviously the best market we could possibly want. And I still feel the same way. It's just a fantastic market for us. For organic especially, and just for produce in general, the culture there and the demographic is people who love to eat zucchini and spinach and stuff, and because in the local cities, in the local town there, all they wanted was sweet corn and watermelons. So that was a big lesson when we learned that the demographic of people in Washington, many of whom were already personal friends of ours, that was just really good thing for us and helped us get going.
Yeah, I think that's a perennial balance act for the market farmers. The price of land and availability of good farmland, but that proximity to those strong markets. Because our farm, we mostly marketed in a smaller town, and it worked out because it's a real strong wine growing community, like a wine. And so there's a real culture around food. But we found that our biggest issue is that a lot of people also have a garden. So they might like all the fancy foods, but they're supplementing their garden. So that for us, we made it work by really emphasizing the shoulder seasons when their gardens weren't producing. But yeah, you always have to be thinking about those variables. And now let's take a minute to hear from our sponsors. It's with their generous support that we can bring you the podcast for free.
We all know that to a farm of any size, your soil is your most steadfast partner, an asset worthy of investing in. Since 1972, Ohio Earth Food has been the go-to source for soil testing, consulting, as well as the highest performing and most cost-effective granular and liquid fertilizers, seed starting soils, foliar sprays, and disease and insect controls. All approved for use on organic farms. They deliver them right to your farm, too. Don't count on luck this year. Start your seeds in their Seed Catapult potting soil and put their Revita fertilizers in the soil before you plant, and rest assured that your plants will have all of the nutrients, stimulants, and energy for whatever comes their way. These natural blends utilize compost, kelp, and humate and are low salt index safe for high tunnels. Feed your soil and let your soil feed the plants. Visit them at ohioearthfood.com, now with branches in Ohio and Wisconsin. ohioearthfood.com. Whether it's tomatoes to market, flowers in the spring, or vegetables for your family, growing in a greenhouse protected from the weather provides the right environment for a harvest you can count on. Rimmel greenhouses are strong, durable, and easy to assemble, offering the quality that you need to grow productively year-round. Rimmel greenhouses are proudly built right here in America and shipped to anywhere in the U.S. With technical sales staff members located across the country, many with growing experience, the Rimmel Greenhouse's team of experts will serve as your trusted partner every step of the way to ensure that you get exceptional value from your greenhouse investment. Visit Rimmel.com to get a quote today.
And now, back to the show. Okay, so you're building these markets and growing a farm business in the 70s and 80s, very much one of the pioneers of direct market farming. What were those early days like? I mean, it sounds like you were going into the city and basically the demand was there, is what I'm hearing. And so was your work primarily just figuring out how to meet it in a way that was efficient and made sense on the farm? What was that like? And you started multiple markets. I mean, you've mentioned one, but you kept going. Was that in different neighborhoods on different days? How did that work?
Yes, they were not far apart, but a mile or two apart, and in different neighborhoods that were, Northwest Washington residential. Some more affluent than others, not all affluent, but not ultra affluent or anything. It was just sort of middle class neighborhoods. And so we, as I keep saying, everybody just wanted it. And as soon as we showed up, they were just crazy about it. They really were. It's
amazing.
And, we did a little leafleting in the neighborhoods. And then as we started in one or two small, sort of startups, people who heard about us and came from other nearby neighborhoods said, "Oh, we want you in our neighborhood. Why aren't you in our neighborhood?" And so then we said, "Okay, we'll go to that one and this one and this one." So we just expanded because we thought that, our sort of model was the idea that we would be in a neighborhood for an hour or two and catch
Oh,
everybody within a few blocks,
okay.
and then go to another place and catch them for a couple of hours, an hour or two. And we did that for many years, for decades. We did that. We traveled on a Saturday we started at 8 a.m. and we didn't finish until 6 p.m. And we covered something like 6 neighborhoods, something like that.
So was it almost more like a mobile farm stand as opposed to a
Yeah,
farmer's
yeah,
market with a lot of different people? Okay. And then at
yeah. It
some,
was always just us.
okay.
Well, there was one exception. There was one exception, that a farmer's market that we actually started ourselves, in downtown Corner, where we just had the luck of finding the site, which then was very successful, and we invited three other growers around us, to come there too. And so we had this small market, and that was still in the 70s and 80s and 90s. It actually went we went there until 2000. We went there for all those years, so 20, I don't know, 5 or 7 years or something. We did that, but then we had, so that was very urban and on a corner and sort of a plaza it was a really long story, but we kind of talked the owners of the property that were a bank. We talked them into a branch of a bank. We talked them into the idea that it would be good neighborhood relations to have a market in the front of their bank, and they totally went for that idea. And now, it's amazing, but 50 some years later, they wanted to develop it and turn it into luxury apartments and stuff. And they looked back to this thing that happened in 1973 and said, no, the community gets to use that space. That's what the bank said back then, and they wrote a contract for it.
Oh,
And
wow.
this was really there was us and two other farms. There's three of us, and we went to this bank president in 1973, and he said, okay. They actually put it in writing. So then it got into this litigation actually over the real estate, the value of developing that real estate, because it was a really good corner. And they fought over it for years. I think it was 4 or 5 years even in courts. And finally, just about less than a year ago, they finally came down and said, okay, final decision, it belongs to the neighborhood.
Wow.
And we're going to.
So it's a public plaza now? Is that what it is? Or
Well, it's in transition. I don't see it yet. It's not reverted back to where it was when we used it. But all that's there is a temporary construction fence that could easily be taken down. So I'm not sure what exactly, I keep looking week after week, and because now I'm retired, I actually live down in D.C. and most of the time. And so I'm watching it all the time, but it's still closed to the public right now. But the outcome of that lawsuit was pretty clear, that it was going to be for the neighborhood use, and we're just waiting to see. Yeah.
that's pretty cool. Definitely a part of history there.
It just illustrates how much demand there is for this concept. I mean, when we started doing it there, it was a vacant lot that was sort of in transition. Nobody could decide, what to do with it, real estate wise and stuff, and because it was very prime real estate for businesses. And so we went there, and so we had about 3 years of having our market in that vacant lot, 3 years to get to know the people in the neighborhood. And they got to know us, and they really loved us. And it was 3 farms there then, ours and 2 others, our friends. So it was a little sort of a cooperative deal with 3 farms, and it just was amazingly popular. So then when this bank came in and said, okay, this is the end of the farmers market. Okay, clear out. All this is over with. It's not a vacant lot anymore. Blah blah blah. The neighborhood just rose up and said, no, you can't do this to us. So that was actually the biggest reason why we got that situation and that agreement with the bank, was the people in the neighborhood who they thought of as their bank customers. They just were really aggressive about it. They did not want it to stop. So then it kept on. And then the beautiful, amazing thing was, after this lawsuit over the last couple of years, it still persevered through all that litigation and stuff, and the original thing still came out. And so
Awesome. I love it. So speaking of history, so you started your farm in the early 70s and kept running it yourself until very recently, and are still involved, I know, in a part-time way. So you've seen a lot of history of both the direct market and organic farming movements. What kinds of changes have you observed over those years that you found interesting, exciting, challenging?
well, I do remember all the evolution of the whole Organic Foods Production Act of 1990. I remember a person named Kathleen Merrigan that then became a Deputy Secretary of Agriculture, and she was involved in that legislation to create organic certification under USDA, and that was in 1990. And then it took 12 years until '02 before that actually became implemented. But we actually were already had been certified by private agencies like for some years before that. Then USDA came in, we got certified right away, and we've always been certified by USDA. And it's been a long evolution of opinions about the value of having USDA do that. And I was always a supporter myself, but I can definitely see the other side. But I was always a supporter that we just need to keep going through thick and thin and keep pushing for the right things and get the NOSB. You know what the NOSB is, right? National Organic Standards Board.
Yeah. Our farm was always certified organic too. So,
yeah. Well, the NOSB, is really the crucial, right at the heart of the whole program, because it's something like 17 or 18 members that are all either farmers or in the industry somehow or another, in the organic foods industry, and especially agriculture. And so that institution, NOSB, is so important. And we always were watching how is it going to be corrupted? Is big ag going to come in and try to manipulate it and weaken the standards? Of course, that was always the danger. The standards would get weakened, and they did somewhat. It's always going to be a controversy, and right now it's not in the best place that it could be, but it's still worth fighting for. I happen to think that myself. Not everybody I know believes that, but I think it's still worth fighting for, that we have USDA certification. I mean, it's legislation. It's clear as a bell. What defines organic is defined by that group of people, and over those many years. And so people cannot say, "Oh, well, it's kind of fuzzy." Well, you say it's organic, but what does that mean? I say it means a lot, because the USDA says it means this, this, and this, and this. Hundreds and hundreds of definitions of organic agriculture.
yeah, Jim, I've had that conversation too, especially with young people who haven't farmed. They'll just be like, "Oh, it doesn't mean it." And I'm like, "Okay, look, I've had organic inspectors on my farm this many times, and I can tell you exactly what passes and doesn't pass." I'm very grateful for it as a consumer, because I have to buy food too, and it means a lot to me to know that there is an actual, like you said, definition behind what that label means now. So if I'm buying organic cream or eggs or oranges, that it has a real definition.
Yeah, it's always under threat, because the big players and the corporate agriculture and corporate food in general, wants to get the advantages without, giving up having the expenses and the efforts and the bureaucracy.
Right.
And people say, "Oh, it's just this huge bureaucratic thing. Oh, it's just a whole lot of rules and forms you fill out." Yeah, but you got to have that. If it's going to make any sense, you got to have that stuff. I mean, no, it's not wonderful. We don't love it, but you can't do without it if it's going to have credibility. So we've always just thought that. Yeah.
Yes.
And I actually got on the board of Cornucopia Institute, if you know what that is. Yeah, I was on the board of that for some years, and a couple of years ago, resigned from it around the same time as retiring from the farm. But so that was, I mean, and they're in the middle of it, of course, as you probably know. The Cornucopia is in the middle of the whole USDA certification system and definitions and programs. So, but what have I seen change? Because I think it's fairly interesting. I mean, I have seen some significant changes because of that legislation, and especially in we have every state, of course, has a vegetable growers association connected with extension and so on, and we've always had a good one in Pennsylvania. I've always been very active in it, but not organic, of course. It was always conventional, and I was the only organic guy in there, but I was active and inserted myself into it, and now there's a whole bunch more organic people in it, and it just has changed it so amazingly when you think about how it used to be. I mean, we were just pretty much, we were not beloved by all those conventional growers, and now, I mean, when we have our annual conference, they have all kinds of organic sessions, lots of them. We do many of them. We have done for many years, but I mean, the evolution of that is dramatic. I mean, it started out from the first workshop that they had that was organic. I don't know, it was probably a few years after the act, was implemented, but then it just really snowballed, and now we have a whole, and we love to do it. We go and we show, you think you can't grow sweet corn organically without the worms? Yes, we proved you can do it. Here's how we do it, and we do that all the time. And people and the extension so you know how Extension is. Some are sympathetic to organic, some are not. Some are quite hostile. Especially in the past, they were all hostile. And I just sort of spent a lot of effort to sort of woo them and get them to listen to me and pay attention to organic. And it really succeeded, not because of me, but because of the act and the whole program. It got a lot more credibility, and so Extension people now are very open to organic. Some of them are even the university. I mean, Penn State they have organic people in there, and so it just really is a big difference. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. What about in the marketing of everything? I mean, your farm market's in a pretty large market, but does it feel like the need is being met now in a way that maybe it's more saturated and harder for new growers, or does it still? Yeah, you're nodding. Yeah, okay. I just was wondering, maybe
Yeah.
Washington D.C. is magically not in that situation the way we are out here in Portland, but yeah.
No, I mean, everybody, this kind of gets ridiculous. Everybody thinks we should have a farmer's market within a block of our house. Well, that's our right or something.
Yeah.
Which of course that doesn't work at all. Obviously, it's just oversaturation, and you too much competition and stuff. And I say that all the time to people who want us, for example, they want us to go, hey, let's do a market just 10 blocks down the street. No, we can't do that. No. So yeah, that whole idea of how many farmers markets per square mile or something is. Which, of course, imagine in the first, there was many years that went on that were no farmers market, none. We were in this little place, and we were the only game in town, and
so different.
It's amazing that the way it changed. Yeah, but we're very lucky because we really established a loyal clientele so many years ago, and we haven't lost any. There's a lot of competition; doesn't even faze us really. I mean, well, it changes us. I mean, we would have even more sales, although we already have so many sales that we can barely deal with it. That was true. That's been true for decades. So we don't mind a bit that there's more competition. Yeah, we really don't mind. But it is really it's a problem when you look at new people coming in and wanting to get in the market, and there's no room because there's so many farms, and so I think that's a shame. And I've always done what I could do to help growers, find markets, and our co-op was a big part of that. Our co-op was for wholesale marketing, but it was also the members were also retailers like us. And the beautiful part of that was when the growers who were selling wholesale to the co-op were also doing retail on their own, and we would basically trade off. So in other words, if I didn't grow sweet potatoes, I could get them from one of the other members of the co-op and sell them retail. So I'm getting the retail price, and that grower could get something from me and that he wasn't growing and sell it for the retail. So and then we get the markup. So that was just the economics of that was really, really good.
Yeah, let's talk more about the Tuscarora Organic Growers Co-op. You're talking about it a little bit. Like, this is not running now, but it only very recently stopped. What was this? How many farms were involved? How did it work?
Well, it's a really long story. It started in 1988, and we just started this little tiny thing of 5 or 6 growers together, and just kept working to expand it and get more growers, and especially some Amish growers came in, and Mennonite growers came in for where we are in central Pennsylvania, came in enthusiastically and built up our supply chain. Our big handicap for many years was having enough produce, for the demand. And so we were always working to bring in more growers and get more. And in many cases, actually growers started being organic vegetable growers because the market was there for our co-op. The co-op was there for their market. And so that really worked well. We had some built-in problems that we knew from the beginning that we would have because we're so rural and we're so way out there, way out in the country. And so that means, first of all, the logistics. We had to truck stuff 120 miles instead of fewer miles. But actually, the biggest problem of that was the fact that when we wanted to get some really high quality people to manage and run the cooperative, business people, which we really did need. It grew into multi-million-dollar business, and we really needed serious management. And we had a lot of trouble recruiting people to come out there and live at the end of this 2-mile long dirt road which was already, like 40 miles from the nearest big town, for instance. So, I mean, it was really hard to recruit people to come and work and live there. And that was just always, fortunately for 13 of the first 13 years, we had an incredible individual person who just by luck wanted to do that and wanted to live out there where we were. And he was brilliant and incredibly successful and high energy in getting the whole thing organized and started. And then, going through those 13 years when he finally moved on and we had to replace him, which was a huge challenge. I mean, really big challenge. But we did keep going for about 20 more years after that through about just about two, I really guess just two other additional general managers after that point that was we lost that first guy in 07. And so we went with the next guy we left for the next guy for about 6 months, and then he just definitely left in a huff. But then we got a third one, and he stayed with us for, I don't know, 10 years, I guess. Yeah. So that was the challenge, was getting good management of the business, Guess, I mean, it got to be about at the peak of it was $3.5 million. And the staff was about, one of the staff was about 12 or something like that, I think, 10 or 12. And so, it just was a bigger business than we were really prepared to. So, but it illustrated a lot of good things about that model, about cooperative marketing, farmers, and it also illustrated the built-in problems of it, which I got to be very familiar with over all those decades of the co-op going. I used to go all around the country and talk to people about the idea of this and the business model, and because we appeared to be quite successful, we were. But in that traveling around and speaking and stuff, I heard about a lot of the built-in problems, that we just sort of avoided by luck in many cases, and then we didn't, and that's what ended us. So yeah, so I mean, I actually I wish more people would ask me this, because I feel like my experience is really useful to people who want to do cooperative marketing, of which, of course, there are quite a few people like that who think it's a good idea. But I don't know. I guess I'm just too old or whatever. I mean, I don't get asked so much about it. But and who knows what reasons there are. But we did have some serious problems with another group of farmers who started a co-op on our model, close enough to us, and in fact closer to our market than we were, and who just took us on and competed with us and drove us out of business, basically.
Oh, wow.
Another group of farmers, a cooperative of farmers, yes. And that's the most sort of galling thing about it, because we helped them get started, and then very soon they started taking advantage of their nearness to the market, and the biggest thing was they recruited a general manager, very early on, who was a go-getter, who loved living in the city of Lancaster, Pennsylvania, which is a nice place to live. It's an urban place, so it's just a completely different situation than where our warehouse was. And so that business had a lot of advantages. Well, I mean, logistically, of course, they were much closer. They were probably almost half the distance from the market as we were. So they just, over the years, I mean, he was an aggressive marketer, and next thing you know, he took away all our customers. That was the only thing. That was one of the things that ended us. But that was a very frustrating thing, because I mean, there are something called the co-op principles, which require that if you're a cooperative, you don't compete with other cooperatives. You cooperate with other cooperatives, and we always said to them that, and they said, "Well, yeah, sure, but we still want your customers."
Wow. Okay. I guess at the end of the day, it was business, huh?
Yeah, it really was. Yeah. And they're thriving.
Okay.
They're thriving now.
So as far as a model, was it basically like you were a relatively, on the scheme of things, smaller scale distributor where you had a warehouse and then wholesalers would place orders, but it's being filled from all these cooperative farms? Is that how it was working?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, right. We had a system where we concentrated, we I forget all the terminology now, but we had a warehouse, and it was good, and good coolers and stuff, and everybody from our furthest growers, suppliers, were maybe 40, 50 miles. Most of them were closer. We actually had 50 legal members at some point, although the number that were really active were probably in the 20s, upper 20s that were active. So we just got this group of growers that wanted this and believed in it, and we had a board, and it was actually really healthy, I thought, and strong, until all kinds of things happened that weakened it. But
Yeah.
some of the classic things that I always said, we have to avoid this drawback and this, and these, and they finally came in on us and took us away after all. But it was frustrating. But it was fun to do. It was really nice to do, and it produced millions and millions of dollars for a lot of growers.
Yeah, that's great. So when it dissolved, it sounds like New Morning Farm specifically had enough direct market accounts that they've been able to
Yeah.
just keep going without a huge blip. Okay, cool. Another angle of your farm that really interested me is that you invested a lot of time in building a strong apprenticeship program that sounds like it continues today. I saw on the website. It's a pretty cool looking program. What kinds of things did you learn through that experience about what it takes to grow new farmers while also getting your work done? Which is another one of these like perennial challenges that farmers deal with. Like, how do we foster the next generation of farmers and get people who don't have experience while also making sure that we fill that carrot order on time and efficiently? How did you find that balance and make sure everybody's getting their need met for both learning and productivity?
Yeah, well, all those challenges. I mean, it is really challenging, and just like the co-op thing, sort of looking at a system and tweaking it to make it work for your variables that you happen to have, so our apprenticeship thing, though, it was good. It was really good. It started out really small. We had one.
That's
First
small.
year. We had two, and then the next thing you know, we had four or whatever. But by the mid '80s, in other words, 10 or so years, we had, I think, four or five who we housed and we developed this system of, what do you call it? Just management of the crew, personnel management, that we developed a system where most of them were college graduates, and we knew that they did not want to just do grunt work, and they wanted to use their heads and do that kind of work, and have some responsibilities, and especially learn. Of course, they wanted that. So we just created this system that gave them all those opportunities to. Everyone has things they manage that they're responsible for, and that we teach them to do. But it's not a big challenge to teach someone to manage 3 crops. So we grew that, starting really, we sort of made the best. We sort of established the best core of it in around 1990, I guess it was. Yeah, around 1990, and we sort of made job descriptions, and we created this whole real, bureaucratic system for having people having their jobs, and we still have these things we call seminars where people sit down every week or two on an afternoon and actually have a teaching process, just a discussion, you might say. So yeah, it's complicated, but it worked well. It just went by common sense, really, of getting people. I mean, our big challenge was retention, and there was, and for some years we had actually. The first few years, people would just come and just spend one season and rotate it out, and we get a new batch. That was really frustrating. And you spend time and effort to teach people, and then you lose them right away. So we absolutely knew very early on that we wanted to fight against that happening, and we really succeeded, to the point where the first year was, I think, 2013 or 14. We actually had 100% retention of 12 people.
Oh, wow.
That was really fantastic. And then we've had much better reach since then. We haven't had 100%, but we've been close. And we do that by very intentionally and very systematically making it a good experience for them, that they get what they need. And the main thing they need is learning. Is really learning about production and marketing both. And and we're, of course, recruiting is a big part of it. Finding the right people who are going to be the ones who want what we are offering, and we certainly had many who were not the right ones for it. But we spent a lot of time and effort recruiting the ones that were right. And I mean, it just seemed ridiculous how much time I would spend in the wintertime and even up into the spring, sometimes recruiting the number we had. The number we got from, I remember in 85, I think we had 4, and by the early 90s, we had 7, and then 12, and the biggest we ever got was maybe 14 or so.
Oh, wow.
I think we're around that now. So finding those people and finding the right ones was just a big effort, really big effort. Because, some of them were far away. I mean, like Jeff Phelan, for instance, he wasn't in Oregon then, but he was no, he was in Oregon then. Yeah, he was. He was working for Cascadian Farms. He was working for Cascadian, which
This is
actually
our
was
mutual
founded.
friend I mentioned earlier, everybody.
Yes,
Yeah.
Jeff Phelan, who was one of my heroes. He was a great guy. Anyway, and although he was also, I was his mentor, but
So I'm thinking it's what you said, it was maybe 83 that he worked for you. So if he's in Oregon, I mean, what was that process like? Were people writing letters, talking on the phone?
yeah, yes, yeah, because of course there's no internet, there's no email.
No, you can't do a Zoom interview in 1983.
So, but we did it by phone, and then we paid people to travel to us for interviews, and we were very big on the idea that we wouldn't take someone unless they'd physically been to the farm and sat down with us and saw everything, and because we really wanted them to be realistic about what they were getting into, because we of course did not want to lose them mid-season, which was always a possibility, and we really tried to avoid that. It didn't always work. We did have, here and there we had people we lost to mid-season, but generally speaking, we just made such a big effort to make sure that they did know what they were getting into, and then giving them what they wanted to get out of the experience, and that was. And paying them enough. We always have paid better than most of the farms. And that was because we were able to, because we were profitable, and the business was profitable. So we were able to pay them. And I always thought that was a big factor. I mean, of course, you always find people who are willing to work for almost nothing, and sometimes you even find incredibly good ones that are that are willing to do that. We actually have a person kind of like that now. We just push his paycheck on him and make him cash it. He doesn't even care, and he's incredibly good. But so you just have all kinds of people, of course.
And I assume, being so remote, you probably also provided housing as part of that. Yeah.
We did. Yeah. And that was, of course, a big challenge to develop the housing. We did that in stages and stages and stages. We bought one house that had actually an apartment with it, so it housed about 4 people. And then we rented a house for decades that was a big old farmhouse that had about 4 or 5 bedrooms, and we rented that one, and it was right on the farm that we were renting the field, so that was very good. And we had various houses that we rented over the years that some didn't work out very well, but it was just a learning process, just like everything else, learning how to house them and have them be happy in their housing, because that was a big deal. If we were going to retain them.
Yeah.
They had to like their daily life. They had to really like their daily life. And, not everybody likes to sleep in a tent or, all the things that some farms,
Yeah.
and that we, in fact, ourselves actually did. Way back a long time ago, we couldn't afford to have the housing that we have now. But so it's just, a huge, long effort to keep tweaking and learning and doing better and keeping people happy, though. But that's so important, keeping people happy so they want to stay with us.
Yeah.
And using what they're learning. And we now have people who've been with us many years who are incredibly good at what they do. Incredibly good. And that makes us really good in terms of growers and in terms of supplying high quality stuff to the market, is because we have such good people that are, and our best one that I was just talking about actually came from 2 other farms before us. One in Oregon. There's a famous grower out there that was like us. I'm sure you know who it is. An old guy. He's about my age.
I mean, there's a couple. I could start naming names, but we would.
Yeah. Well, anyway, he came from that, and he came from another farm in, I forget where it was, but then he came to us, and so he already had several years of experience, and he just took off for us, and is now one of the best organic vegetable growers in the country.
Okay.
I know he is.
Wow, that's amazing. Well,
because he's so dedicated and he's so systematically, he just learns and tries and keeps experimenting and learning from what he's doing, and so he's just a really good grower. So we're very, very lucky to have him. But we have many others who are really great. We have one woman who does really important work for us, and also she came with a master's degree in hydrology. She didn't know anything. This was how many years? 15 years ago. 15 years ago she came, and she's been with us. And she's another one. She's just fantastically knowledgeable and careful and attention to detail, and just and so we have a core group of people like that who stay with us, and so that's just a huge advantage.
Oh yeah, I will say we're talking about some of these perennial challenges to farms. And I think one of ours on our farm has always been retaining that highly skilled level of employee because, young people are amazing and energetic and smart, but they're also not settled. They have other adventures that they want to enjoy. So for us,
Right.
that was a big challenge too. But so it sounds like over the years you've had some success with that. And you are now mostly retired, still involved in the farm, and you transitioned your farm, the ownership, slowly to one of those employees, which sounds like, from reading the story on the website, an incredibly successful transition story. Can you share about when you started thinking about that, how you and this new owner approached it, any recommendations you'd have to other farmers who are looking ahead and seeing that they actually want to stop farming full time someday, but want their farm to continue existing in the world?
Yeah, I guess I would have to say that in a lot of ways that's our biggest success was the transition to the new owner. But it was a product of many strategies that we developed over the years. We started thinking about it, but all the way back in '04. I started thinking we had a couple there that I thought these guys are so good. I just hope they stay with us. And the initial thing was just get them to stay with us, and they did stay with us for 4 seasons. And I kept, the last couple seasons, I started really selling them on the idea of becoming the next owners, and that was in '04, '05. They finally left us in '05 after 4 years. And so, in other words, way back then, I was thinking, who do I need for this job? I tried advertising around the country even back in those days, and I realized really soon that this is really a really hard person to find. The person who is really going to be right for this position. It just has to have all these, special traits. But we had many candidates that over those years, from '04, '05, '07, '09. Yeah, we had another couple that stayed with us from '05 to '09 or so. And I really worked on them, and I really wanted them to be the next owners. And they eventually decided not to be, but we worked on them. So in other words, we had a lot of time and experience on that process of explaining it and talking to people and looking at who they were and what they were likely to want. And then in '09, so many years is that now, 15 years, we came across this person whose name is Jennifer Glenister, who I put in the little bio there. And there was actually 3 of our employees in 2012. Okay, she'd been with us 3 years in 2012. By that time, how old was I then? I was like 68 or something. Well, anyway, so I was already in my late 60s in 2012. I was 68. And so I was getting more and more, serious about finding these people. So I got 3 of our best employees. We had 3 really great people who'd been with us for 2 or 3 years at that point. They all had worked with each other for those years. So that, and they wanted to start a partnership to be the next owners. So we started that process of having this partnership. And I gave them incentives, money incentives, actually. And so for the next 2 or 3 years, they, we're thinking about it all the time and working and being on the crew, but thinking about, what's my role here, what's my role, and what's going to be like to be the next owner, so on and so on. And over those years, 2 of them dropped out. One of them didn't drop out until 2016. She dropped out. This was 2 women and a guy, all of them who were very well qualified to be partners in a partnership for the next owners. I felt they were really qualified. By the time I knew them, really, many years, actually, by the time that they came to us in '09, '08, and then we got to 15 or so. Anyway, but so 2 of them, for different reasons, dropped out of it and out of that partnership and left Jenny, the one left. And she was happy to go ahead by herself. She's single, and she was happy to just tackle it. And she's just an extremely unusual person. She grew up on a farm herself, not a vegetable farm, but a small farm in upstate New York that her dad operates. So she grew up there, and she learned driving tractors and stuff like that. So she came to us with some skills, but she also just came to us with a lot of motivation. She went to University of Vermont and developed an interest in vegetable production, and came to us in '09 right out of school, UVM. I just thought she was great from day one, and I actually knew her parents a little bit. Her mother actually runs something called IPM Labs. Have you ever heard of that?
No, I don't think so.
Well, it's cell beneficial insects. And anyway, so I knew her mother, and she was just a little kid then. But then she graduated from UVM and came to us, and she just immediately, really clicked with it. She really liked it. She enjoyed it. She loved all the things that she was learning, and I gave her things. I challenged her all the time. And I remember in the second year, I said, "Okay, we need a new rotary mower, and I'm really busy. I want you, Jenny. I want you to figure out how to, find and purchase the best new rotary mower." And she did that. And so for me, that was like a challenge of, that's the kind of thing that, of course, I had to do all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And she just did that job extremely well. We still have that thing after all these years. And so that was a way to, to figure out what she was capable of, but also what she, was interested in doing and what she enjoyed doing. And so that was just a really great example for that. So in other words, I just mentored her and really worked closely and carefully with. She took every job that we had, over the years, and was good at every job, very smart, but also very motivated, just really, really serious person, and really, loved the job, and still does. So then over the whole thing started in 2012, and then we didn't have closing until 2021. So 9 years of preparing her to be the next owner. The surprising thing that, to me anyway, that was the most amazing thing was that around that time, 2020 or so, well, years before that a little bit, the USDA and farmers, what do you call it? Farmers, the people who finance in the USDA, finance farms.
I'm blanking on it too. We even had a loan through them.
They've changed the word in my time.
Yeah.
But anyway, the thing was, it turned out that they were just thrilled to they were looking for women to be owners and operators, and being female, that was a big deal in those years for her. And so that just gave her a huge advantage. I mean, I wouldn't say it was like a piece of cake for her or anything. It was still very challenging, but she did get capital that way. And she got capital through USDA itself, and then also through a private bank that was working with the USDA that came up with a large amount of capital for all the farm and equipment and buildings and everything. It was just a pretty big thing by that time. So she needed a lot of capital, and she got it.
Yeah.
Then the owner and operator. The last 2 years before we had closing, she was the farm manager. So I was, just sort of gradually retiring more and more, although I was still there most of the time. So I made her the manager. She was a manager for 2 seasons, and then we had closing, and then she became the owner operator. So, and now it's been, this is the 4th season since then. We had 21. This is the 4th season of it, and boy, it's good. It's good. I mean, everything's.
I'm glad.
It's really good.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a big challenge when you have a really successful farm like what New Morning has been, to find an individual who's not maybe some kind of actual corporate rich person who can come up with the capital to do justice.
Yeah, she did not. She didn't have it. She didn't have herself. All she had for capital was the money she saved while we were working for us for 12 years or something.
Yeah, I think that's a legit challenge, especially when you're talking about transition that doesn't just involve a family member and people are willing to, put it in a will or set up a transition program like that. And not everybody has family who's interested, Yeah.
I mean, I have 2 kids. We have 2 kids. Son and a daughter in their 40s, and they always were great working in summers in school and stuff. They're always great employees for us. But we knew from way back that they were not interested in being the next owners. We just knew that, which was okay. We just took it for granted after, when they got to be 10 or 12 or 14 or something, we just took it for granted. So we knew we were going to, not be dealing with family and just inheritances and stuff. So that, of course, made it different. I don't know if it made it a lot harder. I don't know. Probably did.
The family situation, I think, can be complicated too. It's not.
I know another example that I always love to look at. A really nice family, fruit growers near us, really good fruit growers, but very much of a family operation. And their daughter, whom I got to know because we were buying fruit from them for our market, their daughter was just really smart and terribly nice and motivated, and she is their daughter, and she wanted to be the next owner. And they're a little younger than me, but they're close to my age, the old folks, the parents. So I watched her become the new owner. over in a similar kind of over the time, over years and years, and she got married, but that's been successful for her. But she's a very unusual person. She's a really, really, she's just a really good at what she does, and she's very, she's just high energy and smart as can be and stuff. So, I mean, that was an example of a family member doing it very successfully. But then there's of course, there's other examples of people who have horrible time with it, and maybe it breaks up their family even and stuff. I mean, yeah.
Well, congratulations on having a successful farm transition. I think that's excellent.
Yeah, but it really was a lot of just luck.
Yeah. Well, luck, and it sounds like you persevered. I mean, that was a long road of trying to find the right person and then holding on to them and encouraging them.
The thing was, I wasn't in any hurry. I was not in a hurry. And so I just knew I wasn't going to just jump into the first person who looked like they might be okay. No. I just really knew it was going to take years. And when I started the process, I learned that, like in the first year or two, I thought, these people answering my ad, are you kidding me? None of them were this possibility that these people could do it. And of course, they didn't know that because they were clueless, So
they didn't know what they didn't know.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly right. And so what I'm saying is that long process was a learning process for me, and of course for Denny too. But that really made it better that we had a long time to do it and think about it and adjust it and tweak it and do these ways of making it a better deal for everybody and stuff. And that's just great now. It's just wonderful. I have a profit share. My wife and I have a profit share.
That's great.
And it's significant. I couldn't believe it this year. I mean, every season has been a little different, but
so it's like you built yourself a pension.
Kind of, yeah. I mean, still, I'll tell you what the biggest mistake I made.
Okay.
And
yeah.
I think you're probably going to ask that question at some point. But the biggest mistake I made after lecturing in conferences and telling other growers, raise your prices. You can't afford to sell stuff too cheap. You should raise your price. I didn't hear my own stupid advice. I mean, I just didn't hear it. I did not raise my prices enough. Then Jenny came in and raised them a lot more, and now she's way more profitable. Of course, just by the exact same arithmetic that I used to preach about, but I didn't follow my own preaching. So we just didn't charge high enough prices. And the math, of course, as I knew back then, even though I didn't apply it to myself, the math is that if you have $100,000 in sales and you raise prices 5%, you get $5,000.
Yeah.
So Jenny knew that. I don't know how she figured that out, but she figured it out, and that's what's making her so profitable now.
That's great.
And yet, and I always thought, of course, what held me back was, well, I don't want to look at these people and say, yeah, you got to pay me $5 a pound for those tomatoes. No, I didn't want to do that, and it doesn't bother her. And guess what? The customers are perfectly happy with it. They're perfectly happy. They say, $5. I want these tomatoes. I don't care what you charge me for these tomatoes. I want them so bad.
Yeah.
So,
well, good for her. I'm glad that's working out.
Yeah, it is. It's good. But I mean, plenty of other growers know this better than I do.
Well, I do think when you've been selling to the same customers for so long that it can be challenging to keep raising prices because you have these relationships with them and you've sold to them at even lower prices. I know that our farm also has dealt with that over the years. People who have come into the same markets later than us just start at a higher point. And it's like, okay, I get it. But it does feel different when you've been selling to the same people already for 12 years and then you raise it. It's just an emotional difficulty. We can get over it. It's psychological. Okay, so I know you are still involved in the farm, but not in the same way. Obviously, you've sold. But I'm curious, I always like to ask people, like, where are we in the landscape of farming? Looking ahead, what do you see as some of the challenges facing New Morning Farm in the future or kind of the farming world in general right now? And what kinds of solutions do you think are afoot?
Well, there's absolutely no question that climate change is the big thing. And that worries me all the time. And it has been worrying me for decades already.
What does that look like in Pennsylvania?
So far, it has not really hurt us. It really hasn't. I mean, our season's a bit longer, of course, because it's warmer and the weather is less predictable. And we have had, I can't really say, though, that we've had more violent weather than we had just by where we happen to be. Our biggest weather threat is hurricanes in September. And we've had one like every 10 years or 9 or something years, we've had one. And we had one this year. And the one we had in 2011 was just a disaster. It cost us vast amount of money. And then we had another one in, I forget what the years now, but we've had, every few years we have a bad one, and it just costs us a lot of money. But at the same time, and we had one back in the 70s too. So, and I've said this many times before, no one person or one farmer can preach about climate change and what it's doing to them. And I mean, we just know, only scientists can track it and understand the science of it. And that's, of course, that's the most important thing, is the science. And we are definitely not scientists. And, that's one thing we learned over many years. So, but I do unfortunately see that at some point, and it could even be almost any minute, we could have some disastrous flood. Flooding is a terrible thing for us, and we've had disastrous floods. We could have a more disastrous flood, and so climate is a big thing. One thing that helps us is that in northeastern USA, climate for vegetable production is terrible to begin with. It's just terrible compared to California. Compared to California, Washington State, Oregon, even Oregon, it's pretty bad.
No, it's pretty good here in Oregon. It's true.
I know a lot of growers in the West, in California, and then Oregon, and even Washington, and I know what their climate is like. And sorry, but ours is worse. It really is worse.
We know.
So, but it's been that way from the beginning.
Right.
It's always been bad. We always had to be challenged and meet the challenge and figure out what do we do about when it rains every damn day in the spring, And we had a year in 2018 where it just rained so much. It was awful. And yet, because of techniques and things that we learned to deal with the rains, which is our biggest, by far, rains are by far our biggest problem, not frosts. Frost can be bad, but they weren't the biggest thing at all. It was rains, especially early in the spring or anytime. But so we had this horrible year in 2018. And yet, if that had happened to us 20 years before that, we would have been maybe out of business. I don't know. But in 2018, we still had, we lost money. Actually, we did lose money, but it was not as much money as we would have lost years before that, because we still had, and our markets kept going, and we had, sales were good. It's just that our profitability was hit so much because of damage. So, climate change is definitely the big one. I don't see much else that's really that serious. Organic is always under threat. It always has been, always will be. But I think organic is in an okay place right now. It seems to be,
Yeah.
The certification process and everything seems to be okay. But the demand is still like it always was, maybe better than ever. It really is. I think that when people have gotten used to buying in farmers markets, they like it even more than they thought they would,
Yeah.
They just love it. So, we watch people, just walk away from our market every Saturday morning carrying, 30, 40 pounds of this and this and this.
Oh, that's awesome.
It's amazing. People just really are enthusiastic about all the different, we have so many things to offer. We grow many, many different things ourselves, but we also have access to our friends and neighbors that were either in our co-op previously or something in that category, So
Great. Okay, one last question. I think that I often ask people this, and it feels kind of unfair asking you, and you have so many decades of experience, but I like to ask people if there's like one best thing or a really good thing that they've done for their farm, a favorite tool or a decision. I'm curious, when you reflect on New Morning Farm, can you choose and share about a best thing?
Yeah, because I've talked about this at conferences, for years and stuff. And I always say basically the same thing. If you're direct marketing vegetables and you're growing them and direct marketing them the way we do and so many other people do, if you only sell what you grow yourself, which is a purist attitude, that we've had that attitude in the past a little bit, but I knew that it was not sustainable. We could not really have a good retail produce business if we only grew sold what we personally grew. I knew that. And we have a great example. We have a market here in D.C. that we were the first participants in 1997. So many years we watched that market, and that's a grower-only market. You cannot sell one single thing that you don't grow yourself. And so we go to that market. We like that market. We have good sales at that market. Do we have good profitability? I doubt it. I just don't think. But we have our other market, which goes on Saturdays. The first one was on Sundays in a different neighborhood. The one on Saturday in a different neighborhood is bigger, way bigger. And one of the reasons it's bigger is because we do sell things that other people grow, not just ourselves. And it's, how much? The sales are probably 5 times as much. And we sell more of what we grow because they're more the whole business is bigger because people come there because they can get apples and we don't grow apples. They can get cantaloupes and we don't grow cantaloupes. So, stuff like that. So, and I did this the very first year that we started farming, and we had that ethic in our heads. It's a farmer's market. We're selling what we grow, and that's our principle. But yet we didn't have strawberries. We didn't know how to grow strawberries, and our friends and neighbors had strawberries. So we said, "Well, we just can't do without these strawberries. We know our customers really want them. They're really good. They're really good." So we started with that, and then we had apples, and then we had peaches, and then we had so many. So now it's something like roughly around half of what we have for sale at the market is grown by us, and half by other people.
Mm-hmm. And they're just other farmers right in your immediate vicinity?
Yes, but we're very fussy about that. I mean, we never go to the wholesale market and buy produce and bring it up and sell to that. We get it from people we know that are local farms around us. And one of the things that happened when we organized our cooperative was that we created this group of farms that were near us. In effect, we sort of created them because it gave them a market. And so the people in that cooperative who were in it, one subgroup of them, a whole bunch of Amish guys, still have a produce marketing cooperative actually near us. And so we can be their customer. And so what I'm saying is it just totally changes the marketing, the economics of retail marketing, if you can have things you don't grow. Now, I'm not advocating at all, going and getting California strawberries
Right.
or avocado or bananas or something. I'm not advocating that at all. We never have done that, and everybody knows we don't do that. But everybody also knows that we have things that we don't grow ourselves. They know that. I mean, we advertise it all the time. And we have a price card on the produce that says, we don't grow this. And we even have some things that we say right on the card is that this is not organically grown.
Mm-hmm.
We have that on the card. We don't just, that Whole Foods, if it's not organic, they just don't mention that, right? But for us, we actually say this is not organically grown. And then, of course, when it is, we have that on there. So, in other words, we're pretty strict about what we are willing to sell and offer our customers. And it's definitely not what I call anonymous produce. It's not. It's never has been. But that is the thing that's kept us going, made us sustainable economically for all the years, really.
Well, and with the distance to such a strong market, I imagine that your neighboring farmers feel like that's an amazing service you're able to offer. They don't have to make that long drive to Washington, D.C., but they're teaming up with this existing strong marketing branded farm who can do that work for them.
Yeah.
And they just have to harvest. I'm curious about the logistics. When you do that, are you buying outright from them? Or are you consigning it? Or does it depend?
No, when the co-op it was consigned in effect, but no, we just buy outright.
So that's a great deal for them. They don't have to mess around with marketing at all. They've got a sure sale. That sounds like a great thing to be able to offer your neighbors, as well as boosting what's in your own booth.
Yep, it is. Yep. So we always thought of ourselves as not purists. I mean, we sell stuff that's not organic, and we're not purists about that. We'd rather have incredibly good peaches that are not organic than no peaches.
Yeah, peaches are a hard one. I imagine in your climate especially.
One of the great things about our co-op, though, was that we got an Amish guy started growing tree fruits, certified organic, and now it's been about, how many years? Gosh, almost 20 now he's been going, and he gets better every year. And he gives really good peaches, certified organic, USDA certified organic peaches, apples, plums, the whole range of tree fruits that we have never tried to grow ourselves. So, but at the same time, we sell a lot of tree fruits that are not organic, but they're all grown right around us in Pennsylvania, and the quality is really high. Of course, that makes all the difference.
Cool.
Yeah.
Jim, is there anything else you want to share with our audience about New Morning Farm or your decades of experience with farming?
Well, I always say don't be a Don Quixote.
Oh, yeah?
Go out there, be a purist and say, well, I'm pure as the driven snow and the rest of the world is corrupt, and I'm going to stay the way I am and somehow make a living anyway. Well, it doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. Sorry, but you got to make some compromises somewhere. And, we've made, I guess you could call them compromises. I don't feel any, guilt about it or anything. They're just things that I did but you just can't be a purist, and you can't be especially you can't be a person who only markets what they grow themselves. You just can't, you just aren't, if you raise your prices to a ridiculous level, then maybe you can do that. But we've never done that.
Okay.
So it's complicated.
Yeah. Well, good. Thank you so much, Jim, for sharing with our audience about your farm and what you've seen over the years. I really appreciate it. How can people reach you or the farm if they want to learn more?
Well, we definitely are recruiting all the time for the next year's crew,
Oh,
and
yes.
right now we are, what month are we in now?
This interview is in September. The interview will probably run in a couple months. So when do you do the application process?
It starts in October.
Okay.
So it's sort of, you could say it's just always, because on our website, we're always talking about employment and stuff, and it's a challenge, though. It's a challenge, but we have pretty good luck.
Okay.
With recruiting. Yes, on our website. Yes.
Yes, lots of information on there and lots of information about the apprenticeship program. So yeah, maybe you'll get some people who hear this podcast and reach out. That would be great. Mm-hmm. Well, again, thank you. It was such an honor, and I really appreciated hearing your stories and your wisdom from all of your years farming. And thank you for joining us. And I hope you have a great rest of your retirement.
Sure. Okay, great. All right. Well, thank you very much for all your attention and listening to my long stories.
Thanks, Jim.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Growing for Market podcast. If you've been enjoying the show, please consider giving us a follow and a rating or review. It really helps others find the podcast. For more tips and information from farmer to farmer, check out our magazine at growingformarket.com. Whether you're a commercial grower or just want to grow like one, subscribe to Growing for Market magazine for the nitty-gritty of growing, marketing, and the business of market farming. We publish 10 issues per year with articles written by experienced farmers on topics ranging from tools and techniques to farm business operations and marketing. If you've been listening to the Growing for Market podcast and you haven't yet checked out Growing for Market magazine, we've made a change so you can try the magazine for free. We've added a free month to the beginning of all first-time subscriptions. Try out the digital or paper magazine, and if it's not for you, cancel within 28 days and you'll never get billed. With digital subscriptions starting at just $39 per year, you get a year of the magazine, plus over 150 back issues from the last 15 years. Head on over to growingformarket.com and subscribe today to benefit from over 3 decades of writing by farmers, for farmers, and Growing for Market magazine.